Hello, hello, and welcome back to the NorthFormPodcast. I'm your host, Justin, and we're continuing where we left off from the Katana Mindset book, discovering the 6 stages through Japanese encounters. Just making sure the sound's good here. All right. Testing. Looks good to me. Recovery, as I quickly learned, was as much about the mind as it was the body. During my months in the hospital, I became a quiet observer of the rhythms of Japanese life. Confined to a small ward, I was surrounded by the steady hum of daily routines where every act seemed infused with intention and care. It was here in these quiet moments that I began to uncover the seeds of the 6 stages that would later shape this book. One of the first lessons came from an older nurse named Michiko, whose approach to care struck me immediately. She would arrive each morning with a calm presence, her movements precise and deliberate. Even the way she adjusted my blanket seemed to carry a grace. One particular day I was frustrated by the pace of my recovery. My body, once so reliable, felt like a betrayal. Michiko noticed my tension and sat beside me for a moment. "Shikata ga nai," she said softly. The phrase was unfamiliar, so she said, "It means it cannot be helped. Sometimes we must accept what is beyond our control." Her words lingered, not as a dismissal of my frustration, but as an invitation to let go of the resistance that was adding to my suffering. I started noticing how often this phrase was echoed in the hospital. The doctors, the other patients, even the visitors, seemed to carry an unspoken understanding of it. In this acceptance, I began to find the first glimmers of stability amidst my chaos. During my second month of recovery, a visiting chaplain introduced me to the practice of Naikan, a form of structured reflection that asked 3 simple but profound questions. 1. What have I received from others? 2. What have I given to others? What troubles or difficulties have I caused to others? At first, these questions unsettled me. My natural instinct was to focus on my own pain and struggles, but Nikon shifted my perspective. When I thought of Michiko's patients, the meals she brought that were brought by kind hospital staff, and even the encouragement from strangers, I realized how much I had been supported. This practice became a daily ritual, one that offered clarity and gratitude, and eventually became the foundation for the stages of reflection. Another pivotal moment came during a conversation with my physical therapist, Hiroshi. He had an almost stubborn optimism. Even when my progress felt excruciatingly slow, small steps, he would remind me, are still steps forward. Hiroshi's philosophy was rooted in Kaizen, the Japanese principle of continuous improvement through small incremental changes. He shared stories of factories that transformed operations by making one tiny adjustment at a time, and he challenged me to find my own Kaizen in recovery. At his suggestion, I set micro goals for myself: a longer walk each day, an extra repetition of the exercise. These incremental victories began to accumulate, building momentum where there had once been just despair. Compassion, or omoyari, revealed itself in countless small acts. One day, a visitor I didn't recognize, a friend of a fellow patient, left a handwritten note on a bedside table. It was a simple message of encouragement written in neat kanji with an English translation beneath it. "Even in winter, the plum blossom waits to bloom." That anonymous kindness reminded me of what I had seen so often during my stay: the Japanese ability to extend empathy without expectation. From the orderly way visitors brought gifts to patients to the quiet smiles exchanged in hallways, compassion here was not performative. It was woven into the fabric of daily life. Toward the end of my hospital stay, I met a retired professor named Tagashi, who often visited patients to share stories of life after retirement. One afternoon, he spoke about ikigai, the Japanese concept of a life aligned with purpose. He described how he found his own ikigai in volunteering, using his knowledge to help others navigate aging with dignity. "It is not about finding happiness. he explained. It is about finding meaning in what you do. His words resonated deeply, planting a seed that would grow into my exploration of purpose as the final stage of my book. Not all moments were transformative. In the same way, my conversations with non-Japanese patients often highlighted the stark differences in cultural approaches to hardship. For instance, a fellow expatriate, an engineer from Canada, spoke candidly about his frustration with what he saw as an overly resigned attitude in the hospital staff. "It feels like they're too accepting," he said one afternoon. His perspective reminded me of how easy it is to misinterpret acceptance as passivity. But for the Japanese staff and patients, Shigetagai was not about giving up. It was about conserving energy for what could be changed. The contrast helped me appreciate the depth of the lessons I was learning here, lessons I might have overlooked without the broader context. These anecdotes were not just fragments of my recovery, they became the threads that wove together a new understanding of resilience and transformation. Each principle, acceptance, reflection, improvement, compassion, and purpose, seemed to echo the stages of forging a katana. Through conversation, observations, and quiet moments of introspection, I began to see how these ideas could extend beyond my recovery to shape a broader philosophy for life. When I finally left the hospital, I carried more than physical scars. I carried the beginnings of a mindset forged in fire, a way of seeing the world that was both uniquely Japanese and universally human. This mindset, shaped by the people and principles I encountered, the foundation for now what I call the Katana mindset. The Katana is a metaphor for transformation. On my first visit to Kenji Tanaka's workshop, the air was heavy with the scent of heated metal and charred wood. The forge glowed like a living thing, its heat radiating across the room. Kenji stood by an anvil, his posture straight and deliberate, as though the act of forging demanded not just physical strength, but spiritual focus. "Do you know why the katana is considered a masterpiece of Japanese craftsmanship?" he asked, breaking the silence with his deep, steady voice. I shook my head. He picked up a raw piece of steel, its dull, unremarkable surface a stark contrast to the polished sword displayed behind him. "This," he said, holding it up, "is how it begins. Just steel, unformed, impure, but inside there is potential." Kenji explained how forging a katana mirrors life itself, a process of transformation through intense challenges. The blade begins as an ordinary piece of tamahagane steel, mined and smelted in a way that leaves it strong, but filled with imperfections. "This steel is like us," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Strong in some ways, flawed in others. Life's trials are the fire that reveals what is within." He plunged the steel into the forge, the metal quickly glowing orange, then red. With each hammer strike, sparks flew like tiny stars scattering in the air. The steel was shaped, not in one decisive blow, but through relentless, repetitive hammering. "This is how we begin to grow," Kenji said, pausing to wipe the sweat from his brow. "The fire is our adversity, the moments that test to our core. The hammering is the discipline, the repeated effort to shape ourselves into something better." I couldn't help but think of my own journey, the accident that had broken my body, and the slow, grueling recovery that followed. Each physical therapy session, each struggle to reclaim my independence, felt like its own hammer strike, relentless, sometimes painful, but undeniably shaping me into someone stronger. Kenji continued, folding the steel over itself and hammering it again. He explained how the process of folding was not merely symbolic, but essential to the katana's strength. Each fold aligned the steel's imperfections, distributing its weaknesses evenly throughout the blade. "Imperfections are part of the process," he said. "When you fold steel, you don't eliminate them, you align them. In life, this is a reflection. When you face your flaws, your mistakes, your pain, and you don't erase them, you integrate them. They become part of your strength." His words resonated deeply. In the hospital, I had begun to reflect on my life in ways I never had before, through practices like Nikon. I confronted not only challenges I had faced, but the ways that I had caused difficulty to others. That reflection was uncomfortable, yet it gave me clarity and balance. Like the folded steel, I was beginning to align the imperfections within myself. After folding came tempering, a process that seemed almost paradoxical. The blade, heated to an extreme temperature, was plunged into water to cool rapidly. This sudden shock gave the katana its signature balance, a hardened edge for cutting and a softer spine for flexibility. This, Kenji said, holding the blade in the light, is refinement. The tempering teaches the blade to withstand pressure without breaking. In life, refinement is learning balance. Too much hardness and you become brittle. Too much softness and you lose your edge. His words brought to mind the moments of doubt and resilience I had experienced during recovery. There were days when I pushed myself too hard, driven by a stubborn need to reclaim my old life, only to collapse in frustration. And there were days when I leaned too far into self-pity, losing sight of my goals entirely. Slowly, I began to find a middle ground, a rhythm that balanced persistence with patience. Kenji's process was not rushed. Each stage of forging demanded time and care, and there was no shortcut to perfection. As I watched him work, I realized that the katana's beauty and strength were not just the result of skill, but endurance. The swordsmith had to embrace the imperfections of the steel, the heat of the flame, and the resistance of the hammer. It's not just about making a weapon, Kenji said, as he ran a whetstone along the blade's edge, honing it to razor sharpness. It's about transformation. The blade begins as nothing special, but through fire, folding, and tempering, it becomes something extraordinary. And so can we. Standing in that workshop, I saw my own journey reflected in the blade. The accident had been my fire, the breaking point that exposed my vulnerabilities. Recovery was the hammering, the relentless effort to rebuild myself. Reflection was the folding, aligning my imperfections rather than denying them. And tempering was the balance I found between pushing forward and embracing patience. Kenji handed me the unfinished blade to hold. It felt heavy but purposeful, as though it carried not just strength but a whole story. "Remember," he said, "the fire does not destroy the steel. It transforms it." His words stayed with me a long time after I left the workshop. It became a mantra as I navigated the challenges of recovery and the journey of self-discovery that followed. The katana, I realized, was more than a weapon or a tool. It was a metaphor for resilience, growth, and the beauty of transformation, a reminder that our greatest challenges can shape us into our most extraordinary selves. The journey ahead. As I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the muted gray ceiling, I often wondered how my life had come to such a sudden, unyielding stop. The once familiar rhythm of my days, biking through bustling streets, meeting friends, chasing deadlines, had been replaced by a slower, quieter existence. My body was broken, and for a time my spirit felt broken too. But in those still moments I began to ask myself questions I had never dared before to. What truly gives life its strength? What kind of person do I want to become when I walk out of here? These questions weren't just for me. If you picked up this book, it's likely because you too have faced moments of stagnation, loss, or uncertainty. Maybe it's a job that no longer fulfills you, a relationship that feels fractured, or a dream you've put on hold for too long. Life has a way of halting us in our tracks, forcing us to confront our vulnerabilities, whether we're ready or not. What I've come to realize, though, is the guidance of people like Kenji Tanaka and the wisdom I encountered in Japan, that these moments of difficulty are not the end, they're the beginning. Much like the katana, life's trials are not meant to break us. They are meant to forge us into something stronger, sharper, and more aligned with our true purpose. This book is not just a recounting of my journey, it's an invitation for you to embark on your own. It's a roadmap, rooted in 6 stages of transformation that I came to understand during my time of recovery. Each of the 6 stages reflects a principle of Japanese wisdom, each one building on the last to create a foundation for authentic strength and purpose. Let me briefly introduce you to these stages, as they will form the framework for our journey here together. Number 1, Genki, establishing true stability. Before a katana can take shape, the raw steel must first be purified and stabilized. In life too, we cannot begin to grow until we have a foundation of balance and clarity. Genki is about finding that stability, not the fleeting kind that depends on external circumstances, but the kind that arises from within. It's about distinguishing between what is real and lasting versus what is merely a distraction. Shiketaiganai, accepting what cannot be changed. One of the most profound lessons I learned in Japan, that was number 2, by the way, Shiketaiganai, accepting what cannot be changed. What I learned in Japan was embodied in the phrase Shiketaiganai, which loosely translates to, it cannot be helped. This stage is about surrendering to the inevitable, embracing the things we can't control and finding strength and acceptance. Just as a swordsmith cannot control the nature of the steel, we must learn to work with life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Number 3, Naikan, reflecting deeply to understand yourself. The folding of steel during the forging process is a powerful metaphor for self-reflection. Each fold strengthens the blade by aligning its imperfections, just as introspecting helps us integrate our experiences, both good and bad. In this stage, we explore Naikan, a Japanese practice of structured reflection that helps us understand ourselves and our relationships with others. Kaizen, embracing small, continuous improvements. The art of Kaizen teaches the process that the progress is not about monumental leaps, but about small, consistent steps. Whether it's sharpening a blade or refining our habits, the path to mastery lies in persistence. This stage is about identifying the micro-challenges that lead to lasting transformation and embracing the discipline required to implement them. Omoyari, cultivating compassion for oneself and for others. A katana is more than a weapon. It's a symbol of honor and responsibility. Likewise, true strength is not about power over others, but compassion. Omoyari is the Japanese practice of putting oneself in another's shoes, fostering empathy and kindness. This stage is about extending that compassion not only to others, but also to ourselves. Number 6, Ikigai, aligning with purpose. At the heart of every forged blade is its purpose: to cut, to defend, to endure. In life, too, we are at our best when we align with a purpose that feels both meaningful and authentic. Ikigai is about discovering the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what sustains you. And the ultimate stage in living is a life of intention and fulfillment. It's the ultimate stage. Each of these stages represent a step in the forging process, not just of a katana, but of a life well lived. Through Kenji's guidance, the lessons I absorbed from Japanese culture and the trials of my own recovery, I came to see how these principles could be universally applied. They're not quick fixes or surface-level hacks. They're deep, enduring truths that require patience, effort, and introspection. As you move through this book, you'll encounter stories, tools, and exercises designed to help you navigate each stage. Some may resonate immediately, others may challenge you to think differently about your life and your choices. Wherever you are on your journey, I encourage you to approach these pages with curiosity and an open mind. Kenji once told me, "A well-forged blade isn't made overnight. It's forged through patience, precision, and perseverance." The same is true of transformation. Whether you're facing a moment of crisis or simply seeking to grow into your fullest potential, know that the process will take time. But with each step, you'll begin to see the blade taking shape, the person you're meant to become, stronger and sharper than before. A note on the journey. While this book presents transformation through 6 distinct stages, real growth rarely follows a straight line. You might experience multiple stages simultaneously, move back and forth between stages, spend varying amounts of time in each stage, find certain stages more relevant than others, and revisit stages as you face new challenges. Think of these stages not as a rigid sequence, but as a map of possibilities. Someday you'll focus on building stability, while others might call for deep reflection, Naikan. Stability, Genki, deep reflection, Naikan. This is natural and to be expected. The Katana mindset is a framework, not a formula. Just as each sword emerges from the forge with its unique characteristics, your journey will have its own rhythm and pace. Trust the process. There is no, quote, falling behind, unquote, or, quote, doing it wrong, unquote. There is only your authentic path to growth. Remember, progress isn't always visible. Setbacks are part of the journey. Growth often happens in spirals rather than straight lines. Each person's timeline is different. You can return to any practice at any time. In these pages you're about to uncover, you'll discover why stability isn't about avoiding chaos, but building an unshakable core. You'll learn how Japanese concepts like Kaizen, Ikigai, and Omoyari can transform your approach to growth. Practical techniques for developing mental strength and emotional resilience, the 6 stages of transformation, modeled after the ancient art of sword making, and my journey from that broken moment on the pavement to discovering these principles wasn't just about physical healing. It was about understanding that our greatest challenges can become our greatest teachers. Through the wisdom of Japanese culture, from seasoned craftsmen to compassionate nurses, from ancient traditions to modern insights, I learned that true strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's rather about how we forge ourselves anew when life breaks us apart. Whether you're facing a crisis, seeking personal growth, or simply want to build greater resilience, the principles in this book offer a pathway forward. Like the master craftsman who forged ordinary steel into extraordinary blades, you too can transform your challenges into strength. The journey begins here. Part 1. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Stability. Stability is a seductive illusion. On the surface, it appears calm, predictable, and safe. A solid foundation on which we can build our lives. Stability, that is. But beneath this facade often lies a fragile reality, vulnerable to the slightest disturbance. The illusion of stability can lull us into complacency, masking the effort and the resilience required to sustain that stability. Congratulations for making it to the end. If you like the podcast, give the podcast a like and subscribe, and I'll see you later for the continuation and the story part of the Chapter 1, Part 1. We have now completed the introduction to the Katana mindset, and we will continue with the story on the illusion of stability. Until next time, NorthFormPodcast signing out. Take care.